Viewers, welcome back to the South Main Auto Channel. That's a 2015. It's the Jeep. It's the Cherokee. It's got the big 3.6. Hey, whoa, dude. It's a 3.2, not a 3.6. Now, carry on. And currently, there's nothing wrong with it. By that, I mean it runs smooth. The guy brought it in. He brought me some parts over. They got 6 spark plugs, 1 coil, and told me he took it to Advance Auto for the diagnosis, and they diagnosed it as a bad ignition coil and asked me if I would, throw his parts on for him, which I, gladly agreed to. I'll put parts on her all day, baby. So I pulled it in. I see the money light is on, so curiosity got the best of me. I checked to see what it was, and indeed we do have a P0304, so a cylinder 4 misfire. However, there's also a P0204 for injector control circuit for the number 4 cylinder, which kind of piqued my curiosity a little, thinking we probably have a failed injector more so than, a bad ignition coil, despite the fact that Advance Auto already diagnosed it. So I called him up, said, hey, do you want me to tell you what's wrong with it, or do you want to just put the parts on it? Figured give him the choice. He questioned me about price. I told him what I charged to diagnose. He said, do it. Let me know what's wrong. So here we are. So this thing is littered right full of codes. I wanted to go in because what I've done so far is I've found the wire that powers the injectors. Now with a Chrysler, you can't do a current check on all 6 injectors at the same time from the fuse box, which is super annoying, but that's the way they've been forever. It goes through the auto shutdown relay, but that powers a host of things. The ECM, the injectors, I think the coils, but I just know from experience it's, no beans on that. Fortunately, there is a connector right down here. It was a bit of a piss pot, but I've got the current clamp on it. And what I wanted to do is I'm going to start it up and just show you that there is currently no misfires, or at least a little bit of time I had it running. So we can look at scan data right now and see, you can see the engine's running smooth, I guess, if it's unenhanced. You can see by my hand on it that it's running smooth. So just believe me, it appears to be running quite smooth. Just counted a misfire here on cylinder 4, which that was our suspect. So that's the first time I've seen or heard it misfire. So that's good. But this is where I'm at with it. What I want to do is watch the injectors parade on the scope on the current clamp, and I believe that we'll find the problem and we'll see the anomaly. I know this isn't ideal pointing it at the screen, but it doesn't take long to look and see the anomaly. One of these things doesn't belong, so these are all the injectors coming across the screen. I'm going to pause it. So if we see the anomaly, we count that as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then the pattern repeats. I can only assume that the one that's not drawing as much current is the number 4 injector. That's my hypothesis. So I got to this point, and now we have to prove, is that the number 4 cylinder? Well, that's pretty easy to do with a scan tool, and I'll show you. So typically what you would do in a situation like this is just grab another current clamp, and you would clamp it on the number 4, the number 1, something that's going to give you a trigger on your scope, or you would just back probe the injector or something like that if you didn't have a second current clamp. This connector is a pain to get to, and with 1 clamp on it, I can't even get to the other wires to even back probe them, and then the injectors are under the intake. So we're going to hop into system check, and then I'll just go into an injector kill test. It may not work because the engine's not warmed up. Okay, so yeah, we're only at 69 degrees. Although good temperature, we have to get her up to 83 degrees C in order to carry out this test. So I'll let it warm up, and then my intention is to just go through. We're going to shut off the number 4 injector and see if it disappears on our screen, and if it does, bada bing, bada boom. Now, even though I don't feel that I should have to explain myself, some people might question, okay, so you've got an injector circuit code, you've got a misfire code, they both pertain to the same cylinder, why not just wing an injector in it? A couple reasons. Once we disable the engine, we pull the intake off to get to the injector, I'd kind of like to know how it failed, so when I get in there and let's say we can carry out one more further test, what's the resistance value of this injector, I want to know when I get there, does it match the data that we gathered here, which honestly only took minutes to gather. It took longer to look up the wire diagram than it did to put the clamp on it. And we could see when we looked at that data on the screen that the peak was lower. So it's drawing less amperage. So the regular, a good injector draws about an amp. This is only drawing about 0.6 amps. So what's that tell us? It tells us there's high resistance in that circuit. You know, resistance goes up, current goes down. So when we get in there, let's say we check the resistance on them, they draw almost an amp. So let's say they're at 12 to 14 ohms, and we check them and they're all 12 to 14 ohms. Well, now what? Now you put an injector in it and you're wrong because there's a problem in the wiring. This eliminates that possibility. So that's the reason I do it like this, even though it seems like a waste of time to a lot of people. I always just try to gather the most amount of data I can before taking an engine apart. It's funny, I kind of hear a few misfires there in the background. So anyhow, let's just disable the number 1 injector. Let's see what this looks like. Should just disappear off our screen here. Okay, so this just shut down the number 1 injector. I'm going to pause it, and we can see clearly we are missing 1 injector signal here. I'm going to give this takes about 10 seconds to turn back on here, so I'll give it another 10 seconds here. And now that we know what it looks like, we'll go through and disable number 4, and my hypothesis is that this one that's not drawing as much current will disappear on us. So we got about 4 more seconds, and it should turn itself back on right about now. Okay, all right, so it's back on. So I'm going to go to the number 4 fuel injector, and we're going to disable it, and that one should disappear. Boom, just like that. The anomaly is now missing. So that proves it. That is the number 4 fuel injector, and it has high resistance in that circuit and or in that injector. Should be turning back on here in a second. All right, and there it is. It's back on. Take a quick peek at this here. So it is kind of interesting. You can still see that the injector works. So you can see it starts to build current. This is where the injector opens, and then it finishes building current and then closes, the driver shuts off. And you can see it over here, even on a good one. You see this little hump right here. That's where the injector mechanical movement takes place. That's where the injector actually turns on. So you can see that little hump in it right there. So pretty interesting, huh? Even though it's working, it's bad. And I assume at some point it completely conks out, you know, whether it's temperature related or whatever the case may be, and then completely quits working. I know for you guys working in the shop, you know, you're doing this stuff every day. You know, you get a car comes in, you go through it, you diagnose it, you use the scope. You know, this is not rocket surgery here. Nothing I did is, you know, miraculous. However, the point I'm getting across is, you know, the guy at the parts counter told them he needed these things. They did the diagnosis with their code reader, and this guy was going to spend, you know, however much this coil costs, plus what these plugs cost, plus what it costs to pull the plenum and do it. Only to find out when he picked his car up, it's still just as big a piece of crap as when he dropped it off. It still misfires. It still has a flash and check engine light. So use your noodle. Go to a shop, get it diagnosed. Yes, the plenum still has to come off. Yes, it would be advisable with 100,000 miles on it that when the plenum's off to do the spark plugs. But the fact of the matter is, we're going to pull it off one time. We're going to pull it off. We're going to finish checking the circuit. It's more than likely just a failed injector. If I get to that injector, I know what we're looking for now. We're looking for a high resistance in the injector. Probably twice the resistance of a normal one. We're half the amperage, right? So we're what, 14? We're probably going to be, you know, 25 to 30 ohms on that injector. But if we get there and we only see 14 and they all match, guess what, buddy? Now we're looking elsewhere. So anyhow, don't feel I have to explain myself anymore, but you do have to explain yourself in that comment section, the Insta, the Facebook. You guys know what to do. And just remember, viewers, if I can do it, you can do it. Thanks for watching.